Can you pay a non-VA examiner to complete a DBQ and/or Nexus statement? Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing, can you pay a non-VA examiner to complete a DBQ and/or Nexus statement? And I'm going to let you know what I did with my claim as it pertains to DBQs. But before I answer that question, I wanted to educate veterans on these DBQs, okay? If you're unclear what a DBQ is, it's a disability benefit questionnaire. They came out, I want to say, I can't remember, like 2011, 2012, but at the time I was a rating specialist when they came out, all right? They went offline, the VA took them off the website a couple of years ago, okay? I guess the VA had reached out to the Inspector General. Inspector General gave some feedback on their concerns, and they removed them. And they removed them from their website. It was almost a year, but there were still some that were out there that hadn't expired, okay, that, you know, the VA was still taking from veterans. Now, the big question is, can you pay a non-VA examiner to complete these DBQs? And the answer is yes, I did it. And I'll explain later on how I did it, all right? Now, there's no regulation that states that a private provider cannot complete a DBQ, that you cannot pay that your private provider to complete one, all right? But there are some watch outs, okay? Because if you ever went to a CMP exam and you have a copy of that exam, some of that wording of the format is a little bit different than the DBQs that they have on their website, okay? And I think there's possibly some bias there because some VA employees will say, oh, that examiner only saw you one time. And the vet is not thinking, well, if I go to see your examiner, that's the only time I'm going to see him, and they're not my treating physician. So the M21, the 38 CFR, I think is stacked up against the non-provider that's completing that DBQ and Nexus statement in that instance. But that's an argument that you could have on a high-level review if you submit a DBQ and the Nexus statement, okay? Second, veterans have to be educated to ensure that their claim is sufficient for rating purposes. I've done training in the past on showing veterans, walking them through step-by-step a John Doe DBQ to ensure that they know what makes it sufficient. I've done other videos on what makes a DBQ and/or CMP exam insufficient, okay? A lot of veterans do not take the time and get educated before they spend money on a DBQ or whatever, okay? Now, what did I do? When I first initially started my claim, there was no DBQs. You had to go to a VA CMP examiner, all right? So after a couple of years, and I was fighting with him, I'm going back and forth, and I had 4 CMP exams. And as I stated in some other videos and some of you that took some of my training, and we talked about this, 2 of them was horrible. At that time, I said, you know what? I'm never going back to a CMP exam once those DBQs came out. And once they came out, I was like, man, it was just like a heaven sent for veterans because you didn't know what type of VA CMP examiner you were going to get. A happy one, a sad one, a mean one, a bad one, or whatever. You just didn't know. But out of the 4 CMP exams I had, 2 of them were horrible. And I vowed from that day forward, once those DBQs came out, I wasn't going back to see another VA CMP examiner because I didn't trust them. So I started calling my medical providers. And I was telling them, hey, I'm a veteran. This is what I need. Are you willing to help me? Some of them said yes. Some of them said no. The ones that said yes, they said, hey, what can I do? I said, hey, I need a DBQ. I need a Nexus statement. We don't know what that is. And my chiropractor was like, well, can you bring me one in and, kind of, fill it out to the best of your knowledge and then I'll get you on my calendar for last appointment of the day, and then I can examine you, and we can go through it together. And luckily for me, I had a copy of my claims folder. But one thing that I didn't have that he needed was an x-ray. So I went out, had my primary care scheduled for x-ray, got the x-ray, took it back to the chiropractor, and he was like, cool, I can use this. And he filled it out. And actually, he made notes on it while I was sitting there. And he said, well, give me about a week, and I'll type it up for you, all right? Now, how do I pay him? I had medical insurance, okay? So I just paid my deductible, all right? But some veterans don't have insurance, and they have a primary care at the VA. 9 times out of 10, they're not completing the DBQ for you, or they won't do it, or they've been instructed not to, right? But one thing I did, luckily enough, I had insurance. So I went out, and these examiners, they reviewed the information. Based on that information, an in-person examination, they completed my DBQ. So yes, you can pay for a DBQ. Now, a lot of VA employees, some have came on my YouTube live stream and said, I don't care for private DBQs. And that's sad. That is so sad, especially if they know they can use that exam to rate that veteran's claim. All right? So there's no regulation that states that you cannot have your private provider complete a DBQ, but there is information in the M21 and the 38 CFR that requires that private provider to do certain things. The main thing is reviewing that claims file, okay? A lot of veterans, they just think that the DBQ should be submitted or can be completed based off subjective information. It also has to be based on objective evidence as well, okay? Were you treated in service for this? Was it documented? Now, if you're claiming tinnitus and or some conditions due to being awarded the parachute badge, most veterans, you're not going to find treatment for those conditions in the service treatment record, especially a lot of older veterans like from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, right? But what is some other stuff in there? Your DD-214, guess what? It has your MOS. If you're in the Navy, your rate, okay? You can go to the M21 and look at different MOSs that are low, medium, high probability as it pertains to acoustic trauma, all right? But again, you got to be educated on how to work that claim, what you're claiming, especially if it's not documented in service, okay? So just keep that in mind. There are some private examiners out there that are willing to help veterans get their DBQs completed. And if you are in that particular situation, schedule a free 15-minute consultation on my website, which is listed in the description section below, and we could talk about maybe some options that could be afforded to you on getting your DBQ and or Nexus statement completed. So that being said, I hope you found this video educational, informational. As always, leave a comment in the description section, and don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and share this video with your fellow veterans. Thank you.